Let's imagine two people. We'll call them Jeremiah and Aubrey. They were hired just 11 days apart into identical roles. Their salaries differ by maybe $400 a year, and each of them has exactly $96,500 sitting in their savings accounts. On paper, they are the exact same person. Now, let's say in March, Jeremiah buys a house. It's a nice starter home. 3 bedrooms, a driveway that needs a little work, and a kitchen the listing agent called full of potential. If you don't know, that's real estate code for the dishwasher is a rumor. Meanwhile, Aubrey decides to sign a 12-month lease just 4 blocks away in nearly the exact same style of house. Let's be honest, nobody throws a party for you when you sign a lease. But fast forward 5 years. One of them is roughly $70,000 richer than the other. It is not the one who bought the house. And if you're doing the math in your head right now trying to figure out why, the reason should probably worry you. But that's not even the shocking part. If you change one single number in this comparison, a number neither of them controls and nobody alive can accurately predict, Jeremiah actually wins by $700,000 instead. If anyone has ever confidently looked you in the eye and told you that renting is throwing money away, I want you to erase that from your memory today. We are going to run the rent versus buy comparison honestly, in both directions, including the parts that make traditional advice look foolish. Let's start with an uncomfortable reality. Almost everyone argues this debate completely wrong. Usually, people compare a monthly rent payment to a mortgage payment. They notice that the mortgage builds equity, and then they stop thinking. That comparison is garbage. It's like choosing between 2 cars by only looking at the paint job. The only mathematically honest way to run this scenario is to compare unrecoverable costs, meaning money that leaves your life and never comes back. Yes, when you pay rent, 100% of it is unrecoverable. That is the famous argument against renting, and it's a real one. But when you own a home, you have massive unrecoverable costs too. Mortgage interest, property taxes, homeowners insurance, maintenance, closing costs going in, and real estate agent commissions going out. None of that builds equity. It evaporates exactly the way rent does. It just evaporates through a much nicer sounding pipe.
Your actual question isn't rent versus mortgage. Your question is whose money is disappearing faster and what is the other person doing with the difference? The true cost of owning. Let's look at exactly where we are today in 2026. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is sitting right around 5.95%. The median existing home just sold for $482,500, an all-time record. Recently, the numbers were crunched on the top 50 metro areas in this country. Owning a starter home averages about $3,120 a month. Renting something comparable is about $2,150. In other words, owning costs roughly 55% more for the exact same roof over your head. Here is the part that should stop you in your tracks. Renting is currently cheaper on a monthly basis in 49 out of 50 largest metro areas in the United States. Not most of them, 49 out of 50. So let's stop watching Jeremiah and put you in his shoes. You buy that $482,500 house. You put 20% down. Instantly, $96,500 is gone from your savings account and locked into drywall. You borrow $386,000 at 5.95%. Your principal and interest payment is $2,303 a month. That's the number you tell your friends. That's the number on your pre-approval letter. It's the number you have emotionally accepted. Then reality shows up with an invoice. Property taxes average about 1% nationally, add another $402 a month. Homeowners insurance adds another $275. Maintenance, which Harvard experts peg at 1 to 2% of the home's value per year, adds another $402 a month whether or not anything actually breaks. Your real monthly cost isn't $2,300. It is $3,382. You are off by over $1,000 a month. And those side costs, they are misbehaving right now. Insurance premiums are skyrocketing. Property taxes are jumping up because when your home value increases, the county notices immediately. Funny how that only works in one direction, right? Now, you might be thinking, sure, but I am building equity with every payment, right? Here is where I have to show you the least popular chart in personal finance. Over 30 years, you will pay over $440,000 in interest on that $386,000 loan. You are paying more than 100% of the house's original price directly to the bank purely for the privilege of not paying for the house in cash today. And it is heavily front-loaded. In your first 10 years of mortgage payments, roughly 80% of every single dollar you send to the bank goes entirely to interest. After a decade of never missing a payment, you will have knocked a measly $57,000 off the balance.
10 years, $57,000 of progress. That is not a wealth-building machine. That is a very slow subscription service that comes with a lawn you have to mow. The renter's catch. So, renting is the obvious winner, right? Well, now let's be equally hard on Aubrey, our renter, because her side has a catch that is honestly bigger than yours. Remember, she rents the comparable house for about $2,150 a month. When her roof leaks, she makes a phone call. When your roof leaks, you have to make a $10,000 decision. But renting only wins if Aubrey does the most boring thing in the world. And this is the entire ballgame, folks. Aubrey has to take that $96,500 down payment she didn't spend. She has to take the closing costs she didn't pay. And she has to take that $1,000 plus monthly gap between her rent and your true cost of owning and put every single bit of it into S&P 500 index funds. Every month, forever, without touching it. Do you know how many renters actually do this? Almost none of them. Most renters spend the difference on vacations, cars, and lifestyle creep. If Aubrey spends that difference, this entire mathematical model collapses, and the homeowner wins by a mile. Why? Because a mortgage forces you to save money whether you feel like it or not. Amortization does not care about your mood. That is the single strongest argument for buying real estate that exists. A mortgage is just a savings account that yells at you. But if we assume Aubrey is disciplined, investing her savings at a standard 7% return, by year 10, you are sitting on about $292,000 in net worth tied up in your house. Aubrey is sitting on $345,000 in a liquid brokerage account. Numbers on the screen don't capture what this actually feels like, though. Being $1,000 off on your monthly costs as a homeowner doesn't look like a spreadsheet error. It looks like getting a quote for a new HVAC system on a random Tuesday and quietly canceling the summer trip you promised your kids. It looks like standing in your driveway doing mental math on whether the water heater can survive one more winter. But Aubrey's life isn't perfectly comfortable either. Her discomfort looks like a landlord who refuses to replace an ancient dishwasher. It looks like an email every February with the subject line, lease renewal, and the 60 seconds of anxiety before she opens it to see her rent is going up by $200 because the market says so. Neither of them is purely comfortable. They are just uncomfortable in different currencies. The time trap and transaction costs. Let's throw a wrench into the mix. It's year 6 and your phone rings. You get a job offer in another state, making $20,000 a year more. Aubrey gives 30 days notice, loses her security deposit, rents a U-Haul, and leaves.
You have a very different experience. Selling a house costs between 6 to 9% of the home's value once you factor in agent commissions, transfer taxes, and buyer concessions. To walk away from your house in year 6, you owe roughly $38,000 in closing costs. During those 6 years, Your loan balance only went down by $31,000. You didn't lose money on the house itself. You lost it on the transaction fees. The single most important variable in real estate is not interest rates. It is not home prices. It is time. Nationally, you need to stay in a home for roughly 5 to 7 years before buying mathematically beats renting, purely because the transaction costs are brutal on both ends. But here's the reassuring part for the buyers in the room. If you stay for 30 years, owning absolutely wins. After 3 decades, Aubrey's rent will have inflated to nearly $6,000 a month. But your mortgage, it disappears. You get to live for the cost of taxes and upkeep. You buy your way out of the rental market permanently. A home is not an investment. It is a hedge against future inflation. That matters enormously if you plan to retire on a fixed income. The 40-second math test. So how do you actually decide? It comes down to one simple metric that has nothing to do with your personality. It has everything to do with your zip code. Let's take a woman named Nadine. Nadine buys a house in Cleveland for $135,000. Renting that same house would cost her $1,400 a month. In Cleveland, Nadine breaks even on buying by year 3. Now move Nadine to San Jose, California. Same person, same job, same financial discipline. That comparable home costs $1.7 million. Owning it runs about $12,800 a month. Renting it runs $6,200. If she rents and invests the difference in San Jose, she is $800,000 ahead by year 10. Nadine didn't change. Her zip code did. Here's the 40-second math test you can do tonight. It's called the price-to-rent ratio. Take the purchase price of the house you want. Divide it by 12 months of rent for a comparable property.
If that number is under 15, buying is usually the right financial move. If that number is over 25, renting and investing almost always wins. Cleveland runs around 10. San Jose runs over 30. Know your city's ratio before you sign a 30-year contract. The market reality and the final verdict. If you have been running this math on your own life and quietly concluding that you are just bad at money, I need to tell you what you are actually up against. Since the year 2000, median household incomes have gone up about 92%, but median home prices, they're up 177%. In the 1990s, a house cost about 3.2 times the median income. Today, it costs over 6 times the median income. If home prices had simply tracked with our paychecks, that $500,000 house you are stressing over would cost $257,000. On top of that, half of all homeowners right now have a mortgage rate below 4%. They're never selling. The market didn't just get expensive, it got frozen. The median first-time buyer in America is now 41 years old, an all-time record. You didn't cause this. This was done to you slowly by decades of bad zoning laws, bizarre interest rate policies, and a massive failure to build enough starter homes. So here's the final verdict. Be a buyer if you know with absolute certainty you are staying in the home for at least 7 years. Your city's price-to-rent ratio is under 15. You have enough cash to comfortably handle the inevitable $10,000 emergency repair. Be a renter if there's a decent chance you will move in the next 5 years. You live in an expensive coastal city where the ratio is above 25. You possess the actual discipline to invest your monthly savings. Stop treating this debate as a character test. Renting is not a sign of immaturity. Owning a home is not the ultimate badge of adulthood. They are simply two completely different financing structures for the exact same human need, a door that locks at night. I'll leave you with this final question. When you look at a house, don't ask your bank if you can afford the payment because they'll happily give you the wrong answer. Ask yourself this. If you knew for absolute certain that this house would be worth exactly what you paid for it in 10 years, not a single dollar more, would you still want to live in it? If the answer is yes, buy the house. You are buying a life, and the math will eventually follow. But if the answer is no, you're never actually buying a home. You're buying a bet. And there are much, much cheaper places to gamble. Thank you.